Hi guys, how you doing? This has been the Real Estate Pro coming at you. Just got out of an appointment, went well. Looks like we're going to be doing some business, and right now business is kind of hard to come by. So definitely have to get out there and hustle. But something I was thinking about, and I mentioned in some other videos, I think, or maybe on some other channels or whatnot. Uh, it has to relate to the NAR lawsuit, the verdict that came out, and the changes that may be in store. And I say maybe in store for buyers agents as far as commissions. But one thing that I thought about that might be interesting is in the state of California, at least. This is the only state that I'm aware of that you might be able to do this in. We're certainly looking at it and seeing what the pros and cons and if it's viable. But in California, there's two ways to get an MLO license. Okay, one is through I believe it's called DFI, California Department of Financial Institutions. I believe it's something like that. It's an acronym, something like that. You can get a license in order to do mortgage loans, right? But it's not a real estate license. It's only a license to do mortgage loans. Now, the California Department of Real Estate also has a way that you become a mortgage loan officer. Because back before, when mortgages were done before the crash, if you didn't work for a company that had a license to do more as a W-2 employee, if you didn't work for a company like that, then you couldn't do loans without a DRE license, Department of Real Estate. So the same license needed to become a real estate agent was the same license that you needed in order to do mortgage loans if you were licensed through the Department of Real Estate. So when all these changes came out with licensing back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, when all that came out, California Association of Realtors, and the Department of Real Estate had a carve out, I guess you can say. So you can get a DRE license, a real estate license, and then get an NMLS endorsement, which means that you can, with the DRE license, you can do mortgage loans. Okay, you can actually do both. You can actually be a real estate agent and also be a mortgage loan originator, okay, or be a loan officer. So that brings up an interesting thought, and something that we're looking at internally at our company, something that we may do. We may even start a whole company doing this. I'm not sure. It just kind of depends on what happens once the NAR or the Sitzer Burnett trial verdict. Once that trial is over with, and we see an injunction, and then we see what happens. But what we may see is the rise of the super loan officer. That's what I call it, the super LO. So an option for a borrower or a potential home buyer is hiring or working with a loan officer that has a real estate license, licensed under the same brokerage. Okay, and that's what's very important. It's a very important distinction, because I'm licensed as a DRE real estate agent. Okay, and I'm also licensed with an NMLS endorsement, but it's all under the same brokerage. Okay, it's all the same company. Okay. So that makes it easier for us to look at possibly doing something like being your loan officer, and then also providing buyer agent services included at no additional cost. Okay, which would be interesting, because then you could hire a loan officer like myself, that's licensed like myself, to do your mortgage loan, but they would also double as your agent, or at least be able to provide some of the services that an agent would give you. Okay, perhaps they can help you show houses, or they go show you houses, or perhaps you can go find the house, and then that particular loan officer could not only handle the putting the loan together for you, but also handle the negotiation with the other agent. Okay, is it possible that they may charge you more for that service? Yeah, it's possible. There's some caveats there. And there's some things that need to be kind of worked through. The model we're looking at is just including it as part of the services that we provide as not only would we do your loan, but we would go ahead and no additional, or we're not going to be increasing our fees to include this. We see it as a competitive advantage. So rather than, if this thought or this idea goes through and we implement it, and I'm sure there are other companies that will, you'll be able to call a loan officer and say, hey, I understand that you guys can also, you provide services as far as buyer agent services. You guys are properly licensed to do that. Well, that's a unique alternative, because then more than likely a home buyer would could go ahead and get the loan through that particular loan officer and not have to pay extra, or at least not 2-3% or what would normally be the compensation for a buyer agent under the current model. 2.5, 2.5, 3% commission. On a $500,000 house, which is a pretty good example for the markets that I serve. That's 15 grand. Imagine not having to pay that. Okay. That's, I could see how a home borrower would be, or home buyer, potential home buyer, or borrower, because in the loan business, we call them borrowers. In real estate, we would call them a buyer. Okay. So I might conflate those two terms. I apologize, but I think you guys are all smart enough to figure that part out. So if you had that option to hire a quote unquote super loan officer, I think that'd be very attractive for people. Okay. Now, for those of you that probably already thought of this, or maybe you are in a different state and you do hold a license to do real estate and a license to do mortgage loans, because in Arizona, I'm not under the same brokerage. In Arizona, I have my license set up with a broker that does mortgage loans, and my real estate license, I have at a different brokerage. They're completely different entities altogether. So for me to do that in Arizona is a little bit problematic, because if I offer services as a buyer agent along with my loan officer duties, well, I'm not serving the same brokerage, okay, for the services that I'm providing. So for my loan services, I would be providing that through one brokerage who, let's face it, they have their split. I take a certain percentage, they take a certain percentage. And the other, the real estate company that I have my real estate license with, well, I have a particular split with them. Well, if I, as a loan officer, tell somebody, hey, I can go ahead and help you out with the transaction as far as being your buyer's agent, well, that's another entity that has something to say about what you're doing. Okay. There may be, I can see how a broker might be like, no, I don't want you doing that. Okay. I want you just doing one or the other. I can see a broker saying that. Okay. Because there's just liability, there's just some liability there that I don't know that a lot of brokers will want to take on, because brokers in general, they don't really like liability. They don't like lawsuits. They don't like being in court. Nobody does, right? But especially brokers, because they have, most brokers have several loan officers or several real estate agents under their charge that they're working with, and they just want to conduct business. And the more straightforward that can be and the less murky that is, the better. So, in my example, let's say that I have a client and I'm getting them a mortgage loan, and they say, hey, we really need a buyer's agent and we really can't afford to hire one. And if you offer your services, well, just from a basic standpoint, it's like, well, you're being compensated as a loan officer. Well, if you're being an agent, the other broker may want to be compensated as well for you offering services, if they're willing to do it, number one. Offering services as an agent as well. So you can't really say, well, I'm not going to charge you anything, and then write up their offer and do all that, because you have somebody's license at risk. Okay. So you can't really do that. All right. You can't really go vice versa either and say, oh, well, I'll go ahead and just, I'll be your agent, but I'll go ahead and handle the loan, but I'm not going to charge you anything on the loan. Well, the broker might have something to say about that. Okay. So that might be a little bit problematic as far as from a loan officer, real estate agent type of scenario. In that particular case, I'm not sure how I would handle that. Maybe I can find a broker that with a similar setup to like I have in California. But in California, me and my broker have already talked about this, and we're actually setting up in the event that what we think's going to happen happens. We see that as a very competitive advantage, because if you hire a broker's agent, you got to pay them 10, 15 grand, whatever. Okay. And you got to pay your mortgage loan officer. Well, what if all you had to do is just pay your mortgage loan officer? And mortgage loan officers, they're not, typically they're going to charge you 3%. Okay. At least we're not. We're actually probably going to be charging probably similar to what we already charge. I don't, like I said, it's just a competitive advantage for us. I mean, I can see you compare the two and say, well, look, I'm getting a lot more value by working with Ben than I am with my loan officer at the bank that doesn't have a real estate license, that's not going to go show me properties. Okay. Or at least arrange things, you know what I mean? So you can go and look at properties. Or maybe another loan officer who's not licensed like that, who doesn't have a real estate license. They can help with the loan, but they can't help you find a house, or they can't help you with the contract process, you know? So, we're looking at doing that. We're looking at maybe unbundling services. And what I mean by unbundling services is you just take all the services that a buyer's agent would normally give you, and you just break it up. So in other words, hey, if you want to go, let's say you want to go look at houses, we provide that service, but maybe you just need me to get you in the door, and then you want to take care of all the negotiation and all that. Okay, well then we can negotiate a sum of money, okay, or a charge for that. If you want me to, if you just want to go find the house, you just need somebody to kind of navigate the rest of the way, then maybe that will be a certain charge, okay? If you want somebody to go A to Z the whole thing, well, then obviously that will be a certain charge, So we're looking at doing stuff like that in preparation for what we see as a pretty big shakeup in the market. But we'll see. I just don't think it's going to stay the same. I don't know what's going to happen, okay? But this thought that, it's just going to stay the same, nothing's going to change. Things have already changed. Okay, in my other videos, I was talking about what's going on in New York right now, and and the things. I was at a car meeting the other day. It was a video conference meeting, and just the disclosures and things that they have out that they want us to have buyers sign and sellers sign. That's a big change. Okay, it's not a little thing. Oh, it's just a couple of pieces of paper. No, it's not. People watch the news. People talk. And unfortunately, even though a lot of agents, like I say, have this overinflated idea of the value that they bring, a lot of people see us as a necessary evil. They don't really see us as like helpful. They see us as like something that you have to deal with in order to get what you want. Okay, it's kind of like a car salesman. Okay, and I know they're going to be agents that are just mad about us comparing us to car salesmen. I used to be a car salesman. Trust me, there are similarities, okay? So, but it's something you have to deal with in order to get, when you go to a car lot, you're going to run into a salesman, and you're going to have to deal with that salesman and what they do while you're there in order to get the car that you want. Well, a lot of people see us that way. And I know that may be a surprise to some of you agents out there, like, wow, really? Is that how people look at us? I mean, not all people, but a lot of people, and a lot of people that I talk to. And I try to be as transparent and as helpful as I possibly can. And I get comments from people like, wow, that my last agent never told me that. Or, I never really thought of it that way. Or my last agent just sent me a bunch of DocuSigns and said, well, if you want to sell your house or buy the house, you need to sign this. Didn't really explain anything, And guys, it's, come on, us as agents, we know it's somewhat deserved, but you can also be a very good agent. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of very good agents out there, and I'm sure you're one of them if you're watching this video. But anyways, guys, just something that, putting out there, the rise of the super loan officer might be here. And, if you want to call me that, just an agent that has, that has a tremendous amount of flexibility as far as the amount of services that can be provided to the buyer. That's something that I think is pretty valuable with what might be transpiring here soon. So anyway, this video is getting way longer than I thought it was going to be. Appreciate you guys' time. This is Ben, the Real Estate Pro. I'll talk to you later.